All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good morning, Nee-Sha Roo. My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. From the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble and grateful that Nee-Sha Roo accepted our invitation to our show. Welcome to the show.
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, no problem. Thank you. And so let's usually start with the same question every interview. How, we've been living in this crazy world for the last 2 years with COVID, the pandemic. Some people believe in it, some people do not believe. As a touring musician like yourself, your inability to travel that much, inability to tour, at least here in the United States, all the venues open up in September, October with some limitation. But how's the COVID has affected your personal life, your life as a musician with the COVID, and how you holding up?
Yeah, it was definitely an adjustment. When the pandemic hit, I I was just releasing an EP, and I ended up releasing it like a month into the pandemic, and that wasn't great timing. I was hoping to tour. I had shows lined up. I had some festivals lined up and everything, and it just wasn't happening. And I think I felt very dispirited at the time, and I felt very, drained by obviously everything that was happening. I also wasn't really in the headspace for a lot of people. Really kind of embraced that time to be prolific, productive, creative. But to be honest, I found the whole experience so anxiety inducing because it was such an unsure time. It was scary. And I ended up just trying to kind of like chill out and hibernate a little bit during that time, in order to kind of, I guess, make the next steps, but also just in order to like protect myself mentally, I think, from everything that was happening.
Yeah.
Um, then I actually just started writing more. I think maybe the second half of the pandemic, I was writing, and then ended up I took the EP and I ended up creating an album, amalgamating
Yeah.
that. And now I have, and I recorded that over the pandemic. So the second half was better when it was kind of a more creative process, and I felt like I was really maybe embracing that time to be able to create
Yeah.
something, make new work, and everything. But the whole thing was really anxiety inducing, and it was really intense, and it definitely I was not hustling the whole time. I wasn't trying to make the most of the time. I was just trying to get through it, okay, and be like, okay, if I come out of this all right, I'll be winning.
Well, I'm glad you stick with it because so many bands that I have interviewed in the past, they disappear. They say, well, I'm not going to make money as a musician. I'm not recording, or I don't have the funds to do it. I better go plan B, I go to school, get a job, and do so. For a lot of musicians, unfortunately, they the music career ended because for that reason. So
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to stay in it. I mean, I think the most true thing that was said to me was just like the most important thing to do to stay in this business is just to stay in it, to hold on if you can, because it's really easy to not really easy, but like, it seems very natural to walk away at several points. And I did. I definitely. I took a break for a couple of years as well, and decided I wasn't going to do music anymore, and then I came back to it. But I think it's like being on a mechanical bull. You just have to hold on. It doesn't matter how well you do. It's just holding on is the most important part.
well, we 2 years later, we're alive and listen to the music, sing to show. So we made it, but unfortunately, a million people all over the world, didn't make it. The venues were closed. Musicians couldn't tour. People that depend on touring to make a living, they were non-existent, and it was very, very difficult. So I'm lucky we made it. So were you born like in a musical family, and how old were you when you began perhaps taking piano lesson or guitar lesson?
I was born into a family that loved music. My parents, when I was growing up, didn't really play instruments, but there was a piano in the house when I was a kid, and my dad had a guitar. Um, and so I guess, I think I just absorbed it from my family. My aunt as well used to send us these amazing
Yeah.
tapes, and that kind of gave me a very diverse taste in music, I think. Um, and my brother. My brother was a singer. Yeah, my brother was like a professional singer. So it was a musical family, but I did feel like I kind of it was not like I think in Ireland as well. Like if you kind of end up in a musical family, you play music together and you kind of like jam, like maybe you have sessions and stuff like that. We definitely didn't do any of that. We were all very kind of separate in, maybe our personal love of music or our embracing of music, but it was musical, like it was a music loving family for sure.
And then when you were in the equivalent of high school here in the United States, were you a part of a band, or what kind of music were you listening to at the time?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did have a band for like a hot minute when I was probably about 18. I think I did when I was a teenager, I entered like there was like a school concert. I remember me and my friends did that, and we played some songs by like we played a PJ Harvey song, played an Eels song. I can't remember what else, but that was probably reflective of what I was listening to at the time, like PJ Harvey, a lot of Eels, Flaming Lips, Beck, big Beck fan. Uh,
Yeah,
those were very formative artists for me. Radiohead, um, yeah, well, Fiona Apple as well, hugely influential for sure. But those were the kind of bands I was listening to, and but I probably wasn't in like a proper band until I got into my 20s, and then I was in a band for a while, and then I went solo.
and then did when you were, I don't know, 17, 18, you were finishing high school. You have the option to go to school, or music was the only way to do it, or you thought, well, I will give the music a try before I commit to university, or family pressure to go the academic route versus the vehement music life.
Both my parents are artists, so there was no pressure to go the academic route.
Yeah,
Um, like I kind of rebelled by going and doing business and arts management. That was my first entry into college.
yeah,
I don't think I was good enough to go to music school. I really thought I didn't do music for my exams when I was a teenager. And I just thought, that was for people who were like classically trained pianists, and I wasn't going to go for that, and I wasn't going to be an opera singer or whatever. And at that point, there was one modern music school, but it was quite far away, and I didn't think, I was going to be able to make that work. So yeah, I ended up going to college and doing business and arts management, but it was an art college, so that was great because there was everyone in all the different arts, everything, animation, fine art, and sculpture, and photography, and it was a really creative place to be, and like a lot of kind of really cool people and I made a lot of friends from that for sure.
you remember who was, what was the first gig that you ever? I mean, not that you performed, but you end up getting paid, and you sort of,
The first gig that I ended up getting paid for.
yeah, yeah. You remember?
That's a good one. Um, I think I did. I think I won, if I remember correctly, I won a battle of the bands in my college, like like local like venue. They had like a venue within the university, and there was like a little like battle of the bands. It was songwriters basically, and I
Yeah,
won that, and I got €50, and I was like, wow, holy shit.
can make some money here. You
Yeah,
know?
I could make some money. All I have to do is sure no. That was probably. But then I I think the first time that I felt like a legitimate like musician as I did a support slot for a band in Baker Street, which is quite a big, when I was like probably about 22, 23, I think. I did a support slot for a band in Baker Street, which is a bigger venue in Dublin. I think it's a couple thousand people or whatever. And I got paid for that. We got, you know, as it was the band that I was in, and that felt like that was a moment where I felt like, oh, I'm a legitimate musician. This
Yeah.
is
So that was your big break, and then
my big break. And then the band split up, and then and then we started again.
at the time you were just doing gigs in Ireland, or you had the opportunity to, let's say, play in, I don't know, in the UK, London, and small venues.
Yeah, I've mostly played in Ireland for definitely the majority, but I went on a small UK tour several years, like a good few years back, with my friend Sive, and we did like a little English tour, and now you know, in the States basically doing a tour at the moment. So, but yeah, it's I'm excited to do more and more touring. Uh,
I got you. What's in general? What's your creative process? You are in the car driving and you listen to us on the radio. You begin playing piano, writing lyrics without music. What or all the above? How the music
how do
comes to you?
you know, just having an emotional crisis,
Yeah.
probably. I think, you know, uh, getting into your comfort zone in general is really good for your creativity, whatever that is, and trying to work out what that comfort zone is. For me, it's probably staying up till 3 or 4 in the morning and eating junk food, and you know,
Really?
getting emotional. You know, that's really where my, like, I like to write really late at night. You know, like I feel really creative at like 2 in the morning, and that's, you know, everything's really quiet, everything's really still. I can really get into my feelings. I can really get into, you know, process shit. So
No.
a lot of late nights and a lot of like snacking and a lot of being in bed, and that is where I write. That's I've written the majority of my songs that are written in bed, you know, in my bed.
You say being in the comfort zone. Well, but in a way, you gotta be out of your comfort zone to put yourself out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and put yourself in somebody else's shoes or whatever, right? Or
There,
confronting your emotion. I don't know how it works.
yeah, I think that there's like two places for a songwriter, you know, like there's the bubble where you create and you know, you're really just working working out things with yourself, you know, you're really just like getting into it with yourself, like you're trying to process your own feelings, or you're trying to capture something in your creativity, depending on whether you're doing things that are like autobiographical or not, or conceptual. And then there's like the outside world when you're presenting that work, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. You know, those are two different modes, and they definitely are for me. And I'm. It's taken me even years to feel comfortable with the second part of that. I still find it tough to, you know, embrace presenting my work, you know, and being vulnerable in front of a crowd, and allowing that to be the thing that it's all about, because the whole thing you do, you know, music is to connect and to be in that vulnerable space, and to, you know, let yourself be vulnerable with other people and with an audience. But as human beings, we're just programmed to not want to do that, to not want to be vulnerable. So you're fighting with yourself as a performer to be like the rawest form of yourself, because that's where like the deepest connection happens. But at the
Uh,
same time, you're like, I want to protect myself, and I'm really worried that everyone is going to think that this is terrible, or that I'm stupid, or you know, that they're not going to respond, and they're not going to, I guess, accept the invitation to create that space or to connect. So I think it's an interesting, you know, journey trying to get. okay with that.
The same thing happened to me in many ways. I'm very shy, and I didn't want to open myself. And now here I am interviewing people all over the world, and I'm talking about the personal life and stuff like that, and my personal life. And um, in a way, I think as a human being, we need to go inside and confront our demons and our ideas and our insecurities, anxieties, whatever. And
Yeah.
that's what make us human, I suppose, right? So,
Absolutely.
share your life, where you're dating somebody, you're married, or getting your first job. You need to go out there and then try to make it happen. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? So, in my case, although I'm very shy, I said, well, if I want to put this together, if I want to, do this reality, because music is very important to me, I need to, start polishing my craft and start calling people and getting some people won't understand my accent or not, and then I want to make it happen. So I did, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. What we're talking about the pandemic, the best thing that happened to me was the pandemic. And I'm so sorry that a lot of people died, but in a way, this radio project and interviews I didn't during the COVID, and it was great because I was at the house, I was working from home, and calling people all over the world. I got a hold of a lot of good, and I open up to the world, which is great. That's the only ways to make it, I suppose. If you're an artist, you need to write very lyrics that are very profound, and you're exposing yourself out there, to critics and audience, and open up and stuff. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. I mean, the pandemic was a deeply, tragic and I think transformative time for a lot of us. And I think, one of the positives that may have come out of the pandemic for a lot of people is that people felt more like they wanted to ready to kind of leave behind the fears and the things that didn't serve them, because it felt like such a high crisis time, and it was, that it felt like, okay, well, I'm wasting my time not living my truest self or experience in this world. So, I'm going to do that. And I think that a lot of people did, I know so many people who just, that was kind of the time that, out of such tragedy and pain and fear and like just, I guess, chaos, it was just like, they were like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so many people moved, they moved countries, or they switched careers, or they, just did loads of things, had children, like a lot of people were like having these life-changing experiences in this time because it felt, it felt like this is the time to make those decisions.
Yeah, gotcha. No, absolutely. Feel free to elaborate on the album Lilith, and then why you decided to record that album to begin with, before we go into more detail.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a re-release of my first record, which came out a few years ago. Um, it was my debut record, so I guess not. I'd been in a band in my early 20s that was grand, but it wasn't happening or just wasn't working, and um, I was by myself again, and I was also, I'd gone through a breakup. I was single, and I just started writing songs, and it wasn't really. It was a whole new set of songs. It wasn't really for anybody. I wasn't. I had no kind of idea of whether it was going to turn into anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think everybody says that, but I really didn't. I didn't know what direction I was. I really wanted to write something for me to express my experience of what it was like to navigate these intimate and relationships in my 20s the real bridge between kind of youth and adulthood, where you're trying to grapple with just like long-term relationships and like real, like, you know, life-changing relationships that are like domestic and, you know, different, you know, from when you're young and everything is really, you know,
Yeah.
starry-eyed. And then also my experience as a woman, and how I felt about gender and gender stereotypes and sexuality and you know, perception of that, all of those things I was confused and not confused about, but I was, you know, really pondering, and they ended up kind of coming out in these songs. And I found myself with this collection of songs, and I was I'd gone back to college to go to music college, and actually this time, and I started playing some of these songs live with my housemate, who became my bandmate, Carl. And then someone saw it, a guy called Elder, and he was like, I think you should make a record. And I was like, okay. And he introduced me to Liam, who became my long-term producer. And we decided to put together the record. I had like, it was really, the budget was really small, and so it was really hard like to do, because we had to do it in such a short amount of time. But it was kind of oddly exciting. I mean, the whole record itself was done in like 7 days. So it was like really, really fast. And we had gone in with just the bare bones tracks because we wanted to build it in the studio. We'd done some pre-production, we'd done some rehearsal, we kind of had some ideas about what we wanted to do, but a lot of it was kind of, especially like with the drums was were kind of worked out, but everything else was, you know, really on the fly and quite experimental in the studio. So yeah, it was a really exciting process, and I really liked working with that because it felt like you were making decisions instantly. It felt like it wasn't a case of like hacking out something for months on end in a rehearsal space and then transplanting that into the studio, and then kind of going like, did that sound better in the rehearsal space, and did it, you know, like, do we need to do this, and like try to get it so picture perfect. We were allowing for mistakes and for, you know, experiments, and a lot of the things on Lilith, you know, a lot of the guitars, a lot of things, you know, were not plans and just happened in the moment. And like, you know, some of the songs even weren't supposed to be on there. I mean, the last song on the record, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, was, I played that song for someone and they were like, oh no, it shouldn't go on the record. And then I was just playing it in between takes, and producer and Liam was like, what is that? Do you want to just put it down? And so I did that. I just put it down by myself, playing the piano, and that ended up, you know, being the perfect song I felt to end the record on. And Oh Sun wasn't even supposed to be on it because it ended up replacing another song that didn't work out. So we ended up just going like, okay, he was like, what do you got? Do you got any more? Have you got any more songs? I was like, I have this. And so I did that, and then we ended up writing the chorus in there, and it just all came together. And we didn't even have the drummer at that point, so between me and Carl, we just set up the drum kit, but like set it out, you know, just toms and snare, and we just hit it, you know. We did it ourselves, you know, just played the drum, and it was really fun, you know. And those experiences, I think, in the studio, that's like true, like playful creativity. And I think that brings you back to why you like to play music, why you like to do it, because it's fun. It's like, it's play. So yeah, that's a bit about how the record came together.
That's a great story. Have you ended up meeting Jerome Frost for Tangerine Dream? Well, his kids. I mean, his dad is very famous, Edgar Frost, who passed away. But the reason I mentioned that is Tangerine Dream is one of my favorite bands. I have interviewed about 20 people or so that have play with Tangerine Dream over the years. So I know I'm going to be meeting and interviewing Jerome in during the summer in Berlin. So and he's
Awesome.
yeah
He's,
he's a very good guy, and yeah.
well, it happened sort of. I signed to a label called Schoolkids Records,
Yeah,
based in North Carolina, and Marty Wilson Piper from the church is also signed to Schoolkids. Then
yeah,
Marty and Jerome are really good friends,
yeah,
and they were like, doing some stuff together. And Stephen, who runs the label, met Jerome through Marty. And when we were working together on Lilith, and we were talking about getting some remixes, basically, he'd sent the record on to Jerome, and Jerome really liked it, and he said, he was like, "This is really cool, and I'd like to do a remix," and we were like, "All right." So he did, yeah, he did a couple, and it was awesome. I love what he did with the tracks, and really brought them somewhere different. Especially like for you, it was a completely different vibe, and it's so ethereal, and it's
yeah,
really beautiful, really
yeah.
cool.
It came out very good. I mean,
Yeah, I'm really
he
happy.
he plus Jerome, although I don't know him personally yet, he's a very good person as well. I mean, I of course I know the band. I met his dad back in the day, and Tangerine Dream so famous, but he's a very good person, Jerome.
Yeah,
So
no, it's like it was like a dream. I mean, you know, a Tangerine Dream is their seminal band forever. Like, what can you say? So it was just I nerded out to get.